We heard Tom there just talking about FedEx and the Chinese authorities getting interested in what it does in China. Is this a bit of a warning shot for other US companies operating in China? Are they about to get swept up in all of this?
Well, yes, I think it looks like both countries are settling in for a siege rather than a negotiation, which is not good news for anybody. The rhetoric has gone up on both sides. So I think so. I think at the same time, it's going to be, in a sense, that what the Chinese are doing is pretty much a direct response to what the U.S. is doing, because the U.S. is signaling U.S. companies that they want them to get out of China. And there are people here that are talking about decoupling the two economies. So it looks like both sides are beginning to pull away from each other.
Yeah, we've got interesting competing rhetoric. We heard one Chinese official saying it could be at least until 2035 before all of this gets resolved. But then at the same time, we've seen these difficulties both escalate and de-escalate on the back of an early morning tweet from President Trump. So with that in mind, what are your hopes for the G20 at the end of the month? Could we see some trade détente there?
Well, I think what your correspondent said in Beijing earlier was spot on in the sense that there's probably not time to finish between now and then. The best you can hope for, I think, out of Osaka would be the two leaders meet and agree that it's time to come back to the table and be serious, and negotiations restart. And then we see if they're going to be able to get to the finish line this time as opposed to the last time.
Bill, so on those tariffs on Mexico, the president using very broad executive authority to go ahead and do that. Bill, would you be able to explain to me where his authority and his power comes from when imposing those tariffs on Mexico because of immigration concerns, and whether or not Congress can actually rein in his authority?
Yes, he's using a statute called the International Economic Emergency Powers Act. And it's a statute that we usually use to impose sanctions on countries with whom the United States has foreign policy differences. It's a very broad statute, and it begins with the president declaring an international economic emergency, which has to be something that is taking place wholly or almost wholly outside the country, and it needs to be serious and imminent. And once he does that, and he's supposed to consult with Congress beforehand. Once he does that, he has pretty broad authority. He's going to get sued. You know, he always gets sued. In this particular case, I think that he will probably prevail. The action he's taken, I think, is within what the statute permits. Congress can rein him in really only by passing a bill with a veto-proof majority that says you can't do that. And so far, there have been some objections, including from his own party. But I don't. I mean, Congress is out of town right now, so it's hard to tell. But I don't see enough people in the Congress willing to take him on this to make a difference.
Does that mean that the USMCA now in the parliaments of Canada and Mexico, and not yet in the U.S. Congress, is essentially dead?
Well, I think it's premature to say it's dead. Life support may be a better term. This clearly does not help. I mean, and I think evidence that it was not help was that the U.S. Trade Representative apparently argued against the action the president took unsuccessfully. It not only doesn't help USMCA, I think it hurts all of his agreements, because it tells countries, why should we make a deal with the United States? The president can change his mind tomorrow. I mean, he just got rid of the steel tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and now he is imposing, worse tariffs on the Mexicans. Why make a deal under these circumstances? I think it hurts America's credibility across the board.